everyone, this is Helloangel.design. Today I'm going to show you how to make this cute dress with the ruffles at the skirt of the dress. It's very beautiful and easy to make, and have a belt at the back. So if you want to attach a belt, you can. If you don't, it's optional, but when you have a belt, it's really cute. And instead of me making a button loop, I just decide to make a strap, and then you can tie it at the back of the dress. This is how it is once you have done making your own dress. Don't forget to subscribe. If you haven't, if you're a beginner, you're welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by, and don't forget to hit that red button that says subscribe. And after that, turn on your notification bell button so that you don't miss any of our video. If you're a subscriber, thank you so much for staying with us. If you have any question, put it on the comment section. If my tutorial is helpful, thumbs up, and let's This is my back pattern paper. I place it on fold on my fabric, and then I cut it out. I cut one lining and one made fabric. The purpose of placing my back pattern paper on fold, because for the center back I'm going to attach a strap at the center back, and the child can tie it at the back instead of a button loop. You can make yours button loop, you can make yours a strap. That totally depends on you. So this is my back fabric and the lining, and I also do the same thing. I place my front pattern paper on fold, one lining, one made fabric, and this is my strap for the belt. I'm using a different fabric to make a design for this dress that we are making today. The length of my strap is 3.25 inch and the width is 31 inch. So I cut two pieces, and this is for my ruffle. So I don't have a long fabric. I'm going to join the fabric together. If you don't have a long fabric, you can always join fabric together. So the length of my ruffle pieces right here is 4 inch. Make sure to cut a very long piece of fabric, because we are going to gather it at the skirt once we start making the skirt. And this is my lining. So the lining is going to be shorter than the made fabric. So make sure that if your made fabric is like 10 inch or 12 inch, make sure that your lining is 2 inch shorter than your made fabric. So I've already cut out my lining. So this is my fabric that I'm going to attach for the strap. So I'm going to fold it like a bias binding, and then I'll go ahead and top stitch. So the length is 1 inch, the width will be 8 inch. This is my made fabric. The length of my made fabric is 13 inch, while the width is 35.5 inch. So let's start put the dress together. The next thing that we have to do, you open your back top. This is the back of my top. So you place your measuring tape like this from the neckline. You're going to measure down 4 inch. So from here to here, you measure down 4 inch right here. Once you have done that, you take your scissors, go ahead and cut it to that 4 inch that you measure. So I have cut it out. This is how it is. Also do the same thing with your lining. Once you have done that, place your lining on top of your made fabric. You are going to pin around the both armhole, neckline, in the center back. You are not going to pin the shoulder. We are not stitching the shoulder yet. Once you have done pinning around the both armhole, neckline, and the center back, the next thing that you have to do, take it to your sewing machine, stitch the both armhole with 1 centimeter seam allowance, stitch the neckline with 1 centimeter seam allowance. When you are going to stitch the center back, what you're going to do, you take your strap to your sewing machine, fold it into two like this, and then fold the both raw edges inside, and then you just go ahead and give it a top stitch on both sides. So I have already stitched mine. This is how it looks. So before you start stitching the center back, you remove your pin. You place one of the strap inside like this. Make sure your strap is inside the top dress that you are making. So what you're going to do, you place it at the center back. You just go ahead and secure that with a pin. You secure that with a pin like this. You can then go ahead and give it a top stitch all the way down. And for this other side, you repeat the same process. Take off your pin. Put your strap inside the top dress that you are making. You just push it inside like this. And then you can then go ahead and secure that with a pin and top stitch it all the way down. If you're also stitching a button loop, it's still the same thing. You have to place your loop inside and make sure the raw edges is outside the top dress that you are making. So go ahead and stitch the both armhole, neckline, and the center back. Remember to place your button loop or your strap at the center back. Once you have done stitching your back top, then you take your front top, take your lining. Make sure both front fabric are facing each other. Go ahead and pin the both armhole, neckline. Once you have done pinning, take it to your sewing machine. Stitch the both armhole with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Stitch the neckline with 1 centimeter seam allowance. Do not stitch the shoulder yet. I have top stitch. This is how it is. I take the back top dress to my ironing board and I just give it a good press. Make sure you press it around. This is how it looks, and this is my front top dress that I'm making. When you finish stitching, remember to snip around the curved edge. You can see that this is the back of my front top dress. I haven't turned it inside out because I'm going to put this back inside the front of the top dress that we are making. So what you're going to do, you take your safety pin, place it at the shoulder like this, and then open your front top dress. So you're going to put it inside, lining facing each other, made fabric will be facing each other. You just push it inside gradually. Once you have done that, take your pin, go ahead and pin the both shoulder seam together. Remember, make sure both lining facing each other, made fabric facing each other. Once you have done pinning, take it to your sewing machine, give it a top stitch with 1 centimeter seam allowance, and then you repeat the same process with the other side of the shoulder seam. I have stitched the both shoulder seam. I will take my scissors and just snip this out a little bit. Once you have done that, go ahead and turn it inside out. You just pull it out like this. So this is how it will look once you have done that. You can then take your top dress to your ironing board and give it a good press. The next thing that you have to do, you take your bed fabric to your sewing machine. So what you're going to do, make sure that both front fabric are facing each other. You're just folding the fabric into two like this. Go ahead and pin it all the way down. I have pinned it together. Before you take it to your sewing machine and stitch, what you are going to do, you take your ruler and your marker. You take the end of the strap. You just place your ruler, you just draw it a diagonal way like this. The next thing that you have to do, take it to your sewing machine, go ahead and give it a top stitch all the way down. When you get down to this mark, you just place your foot and just stitch it a triangle way. And you take the second pieces, you repeat the same process. Once you have stitched that together, you can also take your ruffle fabric, go ahead and join the pieces together. Make sure that both front fabric are facing each other. If you don't have a long piece of fabric, you can always join your piece of fabric together. Go ahead and join the pieces together. I have stitched my belt together. I just take it to my ironing board. I give it a good press. Make sure to turn it inside out. This is how it looks once you have done that. So when you finish doing that, you put the both together. We are going to make sure that the both are the same length. So you just go ahead and check. So mine is the same length. And then my ruffle pieces, I have also joined them together, and I take it to my overlock. I overlock the raw edges, and I also take it to my ironing board. I fold inside 1 centimeter, and then I fold it again 1 centimeter. We are going to hem the ruffle pieces. I will take it to my sewing machine and give it a top stitch all around. So go ahead and hem that together. Once you have done that, you take your top dress. This is my top dress. What you're going to do from the waistline, we are going to measure 1/2 inch. I have already measured mine. This is my 1/2 inch. From the waistline, I measure inside 1/2 inch. And you also repeat the same process on this other side. Once you have done that, you take one piece of the belt, place it like this. Make sure to separate your lining. You just place it at the side seam and secure the belt with a pin. Once you have secured your belt with a pin, take it to your sewing machine. Go ahead and top stitch. When you're stitching, make sure it's not up to 1 centimeter. And then you take the second pieces of your belt. You pick your made fabric, place it at the side seam like this. Secure that with a pin. Once you have pinned it together, go ahead and give it a top stitch. So once you have stitched your belt together, just use that opportunity to put both side seam of your top dress together. You're just going to put both sides seam together, pin them together, and take it to your sewing machine and top stitch with 1 centimeter seam allowance. You just go ahead and pin it all the way down, just the way I'm doing right now. You see the way I pin it together. Take it to your sewing machine, stitch it with 1 centimeter seam allowance. So go ahead and stitch them together. I have stitched the both side seam of my top dress together. This is how it is, and I've also stitched my belt together. This is how it looks right now. And I have also hemmed my ruffle pieces all around. This is how it finally looks. The next thing that you have to do, you fold one side of your fabric. Before you do that, make sure you put the fabric into two, and you know the mid part, so, or a center crease. So this is my center crease right here. So I just fold one side of the fabric into that center crease. So once you have done that, what you are going to do, you take your measuring tape or your ruler, place it at the very top of your skirt. I will measure down 4 inches. So I'm going to take my armhole curve from this 4 inch and then go ahead and curve it out. So I will place it like this. I'm going to curve it out like this. So when you're cutting, you're just only cutting one piece. You're not cutting the both pieces. You take your scissors, you just go ahead and cut it out like this. So I have cut it out. This is how it is. Like I said, you're only cutting one pieces. You're not cutting the both fabric. And this other side of the fabric, you fold it inside. Pick this up. Put it aside, fold this inside. Make sure that this side is more inside of the fabric. And then you take these other pieces, place it on top of it like this. So what you are going to do, once you place this on top of it like this, you take your marker, you're going to trace this out to this point right here. You just go ahead and trace it out. Once you have traced it out, then pick this up, put it aside. So you're going to cut from your tracing line to the end right here. So when you're also cutting, you just pick the fabric up. You're not cutting them together. Pick the fabric up, take your scissors, go ahead and cut it out. Once you cut it out, this is how it will look. You can see how it is right now. So the next thing that we have to do, you take your ruffle pieces to your sewing machine, set your sewing machine to the longest stitch. You're going to stitch it all around. So go ahead and stitch that together. Then we cannot gather it on the skirt. I have stitched my gather stitch thread on my ruffle pieces. So when you're going to gather it on your skirt, you can see that this side is curved, while this side is also curved. So when you're pinning your ruffle pieces on your skirt, you're going to pin it on this side. So you just spin it all the way around, you end on this side. You're not pinning it on this curved side because this is also curved. You are not going to pin your ruffle pieces. You're going to pin it from this edge all around the bottom edge, all around, and you end right here. So you just pick your ruffle pieces, place it at the top of your skirt like this. Make sure both front fabric are facing each other. Go ahead and gather it around and you end right here. I have gathered my ruffle pieces around the skirt. This is how it looks. So I just spin it all around like this. You can see how I pin it around the bottom edge, all around, and I end on this side. Once you have done that, take it to your sewing machine, stitch it with 1 centimeter seam allowance, or depends on the seam allowance that you are using. Go ahead and stitch it together. Once you have done that, remove your gather stitch thread, take it to your overlocker, overlock the raw edges, or use zigzag to overlock the raw edges. Once you have done that, also take your lining skirt to your sewing machine, set it to the longest stitch. We are also going to gather the lining skirt. So go ahead and stitch them together. I have top stitched my ruffle on my skirt. You can see how that is. I take it to my overlocker. I just overlock all the raw edges. The next thing that you have to do, you're going to turn the fabric inside out. This is the open place that we didn't place our ruffle pieces. So when you're putting them together, you pick this side, put them together like this. Go ahead and pin it all the way down. I have pinned it together. This is how it looks right now. So you can see that this side of my ruffle pieces, what you are going to do, so you just fold inside 1 centimeter and then you fold it again 1 centimeter. You go ahead and top stitch. Once you top stitch, then place it at the end where it ends. You just pin that together, and when you're stitching, you just go ahead and continue from your stitches before. Just go ahead and stitch it all the way down. Once you have done that, you can also go ahead and overlock the raw edges. Once you have stitched them together and you overlock the raw edges, either with your zigzag sewing machine or with your overlocker, set your sewing machine to the longest stitch. You just go ahead and stitch around the waistline of the skirt. I have stitched my skirt together. This is how it is. I take it to my overlocker, overlock the raw edges, and I put it into 2 so that I know the mid part of my skirt or center crease. I give it a cut, and I did the same thing on this other side. This will be the front, and I also give it a cut. And you take your top dress. This is my top dress. Put them together like this so that you also know the mid part of your top dress. Go ahead and give it a cut. I did that already, and I also did the same thing on the side. The next thing that you have to do, turn your skirt inside out, and I will take my top dress. I'm going to put it inside inside the skirt. So I will make sure that the front, this is the front of my top, this is the front of my skirt. I'll put the mid part together and I will secure that with a pin. And this is the back of my top dress, this is the back of my skirt, and I will put them together, both mid part or center crease together, and I will secure that with a pin. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to gather this side of the fabric on this side of the top. I will gather this side of the fabric on this side of the top. I have pinned my skirt around. I will take it to my sewing machine, top stitch with 1/2 inch seam allowance. When we measure inside right here, we measure inside 1/2 inch seam allowance. So also stitch your skirt around with 1/2 inch seam allowance. And this part right here that we have a ruffles on the skirt, do not gather it, just leave it the way it is and gather the rest of the fabric. Once you have stitched your main skirt together, take your lining skirt. I have already stitched my gather stitch thread on my lining skirt. Gather it on your lining top dress that you are making. Gather it around the waistline. Once you have done that, pin it together, take it to your sewing machine, also top stitch with 1/2 inch seam allowance. I have stitched my skirt together. This is how it is, and I take it to my overlocker. I just overlock the raw edges. I've also stitched my lining. I take it to my overlocker. I overlock the raw edges, and I use that opportunity. I just go ahead and hem my lining. Go ahead and hem your lining. So this is how it looks right now. The next thing that you have to do, take your dress to your sewing machine. We are going to give it a top stitch all the way down. So when you're stitching, push the seam towards your main fabric, and you just go ahead and give it a top stitch all around. Once you have done that, your dress is finally ready. So go ahead and stitch that together.